The world's top climate scientists couldn't make it any more clear. Global warming is real, it's getting worse, and we're to blame.
Part of that, powerful storms. And here's an example of weather running wild across central Florida just a short time ago. Homes flattened, more than a dozen people killed.
And get ready for a U.S. Super Bowl to remember, with lots of firsts on and off the field and on the sidelines too. It is 5 p.m. in Paris, 10 a.m. in Lady Lake, Florida. From CNN Center, I'm Colleen McEdwards.
And I'm Stephen Frazier, and this is your World Today.
And we begin this hour with the state of the world's environment. 2,500 scientists from about 130 countries have finally issued the most sobering assessment on the future of our planet.
They were gathered in Paris and have concluded that it's human activity that's mostly to blame for the climate change that leads to global warming. The final report of their conference, issued a short time ago, said carbon dioxide and other heat-trapping greenhouse gases have been the main drivers of warming since the 1950s. They predict that sea levels and temperatures are going to rise, and they're trying to send a wake-up call to governments that prompt action by humans is essential now.
And a report issued by a UN climate conference about a year ago outlined where countries stand in their efforts to try to curb worldwide warming. The countries included in the research account for 90% of the carbon dioxide emissions. Let's take a look at how it breaks down. Sweden, Britain, and Denmark apparently working the hardest to improve conditions. About 1/4 of energy consumed in Sweden in 2003 came from renewable sources. In Stockholm, 1/4 of city buses run on ethanol or biodegradable fuel. Now, in the other extreme, you've got China, Malaysia, Saudi Arabia. They are at the bottom of this list. The Saudi Kingdom is the world's largest oil exporter, and the report says its policies generally block attempts to reduce greenhouse gases. The U.S., for its part, ranks 4th from the bottom on that very list of nations.
The U.S. government has refused to sign the Kyoto Protocol. It has opted for policies that focus on voluntary emissions reductions by industry and government investment in the development of clean energy technologies that don't exist yet.
Miles O'Brien has been looking into what might happen to the planet if the status quo were to continue.
When the gavel changed hands in the Senate committee that oversees the environment, the political wind shifted in an instant. The outgoing chairman, Republican James Inhofe of Oklahoma, he has called global warming a hoax.
We are going through a warmer cycle now, and I've contended, as many scientists have, this is due to natural causes.
Inhofe's successor in the new Senate, Democrat Barbara Boxer of California. She says global warming is real and is mostly caused by human beings.
What we need to do next is focus our attention on how we can fight this serious threat.
The power shift in Congress is just part of what is turning up the heat on this issue. Scientists now say there is a crystal clear link between the burning of fossil fuels and rising temperatures. Hurricanes Katrina and Rita raise concern about the powerful storms generated by a warmer atmosphere. And the Iraq War is prompting a related discussion about weaning ourselves from foreign oil.
I would say at the moment, we have to act now. We're very close to the tipping point.
Boxer is pushing hard to pass some legislation that would impose mandatory limits on industry, caps on the amount of greenhouse gases pumped into the atmosphere. In the House, it is no different. Speaker Nancy Pelosi is poised to create a new committee focused solely on climate change. Congressman Ed Markey of Massachusetts would lead it.
The overwhelming weight of scientific evidence is that this is a large and growing threat to our planet. And once we have the debate, I'm convinced that we will be able to legislate.
But not so fast. There is still a lot of opposition out there. Lobbyists who represent oil companies and utilities are planning big roadblocks, or at least speed bumps, for any legislation that would impose emissions caps. Scott Siegel is one of those lobbyists. He represents a Texas utility that would like to build 11 new coal-fired power plants, the worst greenhouse gas offenders.
I do believe that global climate change is a longer-term issue that allows the Congress and the administration some time to choose among competing alternatives.
So we do have time.
We do have time.
And what about the White House? While the president did mention
of global climate change
in his State of the Union address, the conservation measures he proposed stop well short of emissions caps. The president's point man on global warming is Jim Connaughton.
What's the matter with capping the emissions of these greenhouse gases?
The president supports approaches that reduce greenhouse gases in a way that produces an investment in technology and real reductions in our own country. There are other proposals that would impose a huge cost that would reduce emissions by putting people out of work and moving those emissions to countries overseas.
The president's goal is to reduce U.S. gasoline consumption by 20% in the next decade. That equates to about 2.5% of total U.S. carbon dioxide emissions projected in 2017. CAP programs are much more ambitious. The plan, just signed into law by California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, would reduce carbon emissions there by 25% in the next 13 years.
So this is something for the next president.
In terms of attacking this problem to the degree that we must, unless George Bush, has some kind of conversion on this, a lot of the job will fall to a future president. But we need to do something now, and we intend to.
Miles O'Brien, CNN, Washington.